Anyway,
You know, should have Ross on that. Not talking about the little one. Oh, that's I mean, maybe they just take one. I don't know. I can buy other ones. They're gonna say principal said that if we agree with them, sometimes I'm in trouble.
I get closer and closer to time.
oh, man. What's that? I voted. Oh, you went and did early vote? Yes. About 45 minutes. You didn't want to wait and watch the rest of the debates? There you go, that is not good. I started to shoot my TV. I didn't even bother to watch. That's what I hear. Oh, Lord, no. It's just sad that out of 300, are we live? 330 million people in this country get to choose between them.
That's it. That's yin and yang. Yin and yang.
Yes, that's how people felt when you ran. Getting deep, man, getting deep. I know for a fact, for some people, that is true.
Larry, Justin and I ran with you this past time. That might be trouble.
Put on some hip boots in a minute.
I got him in the truck.
Yes. Oh. I wrote my name in for everything, so don't you worry about that.
Oh, we did.
All good shit.
I like it.
Got time for one more?
Can I ask a question before we start? We're not live yet, right? Now, on the news today, it said that we were going to be voting on the Christmas event and all that kind of stuff, but it's on the consent agenda. That's not true, is it?
The only one that says is the parade and the Christmas celebration.
And that's kind of what I thought I heard, that we were supposed to be voting on.
Well, you go on.
Well,
Yeah.
so technically,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. I'm good.
Because even here you could move to take an item off
Right.
and reject it.
So is Shanti's open yet? Or I know they've been.
No,
I
Who's
don't
that?
think so. Shanti's.
I think next week we start.
Okay.
Their pizza is great. Is it? Yeah, it's really good.
Well, I know like somebody said they had I'm sorry.
No, yeah, because it might turn like any second. We're within a minute.
So we're gonna start with 5 o'clock. YouTube is denying access for some reason. It's your fault.
I think we should,
Oh,
and we've got a 4 o'clock commitment. And it is 4 o'clock on October 5th, 2020, and I officially open this meeting of the Conway City Council. Good afternoon and welcome. It's a beautiful day in Conway, South Carolina. We'll begin with item 2, an invocation by Timmy Tyner of the Rock Church. If you come forward, please. Thank you so much for being here.
For those that would like, let us pray. Father, we just thank you for this time. God, I just pray, just right now, especially for our sister city, Myrtle Beach, and God, just the loss of their officer. Lord, I just pray for his family and all of our public safety, Lord, as they go out every day, not knowing whether they're going to return home to their families. Lord, I pray for our city officials, Lord, as they continue to make decisions to lead this great city we live in. I pray for your wisdom for them as they seek to move forward. God, even in these times today that we've never faced before. God, even questions on what does the next coming months look like. Lord, I pray that you just continue to bring that wisdom, protect this city, and God, may you help us flourish and continue to serve and to look for you for all guidance. Lord, in your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
For all. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your being here and for your leading us. Item 3 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion? Mr. Hyman.
May I make a motion to approve the agenda?
Thank you, sir. Is there Jim?
Second motion.
We have a properly seconded motion to approve the agenda as it is set forth. All in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Item 4 is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept? Mr. White.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
Second.
We have a properly seconded motion to also approve the consent agenda as it is written. All in favor with a show of hands, please. And that motion also carries unanimously. We'll move now to item 5, the special presentation, one that we always look forward to, which is the presentation of Employees of the Month. Chief Hendrick, how do you do?
Long time no see.
Long time. So glad to see you now. Gentlemen, welcome.
All right, we got Sergeant Ryan Clyde and Captain Jason Perzan for the Employees of the Month for, I guess it's September 2020. I'll start with Sergeant Clyde first. In August of 2020, Hurricane Laura formed and made landfall in Louisiana, and that brought catastrophic damage to the area. On August 24th, South Carolina Task Force 1 was requested to assemble and respond to the state of Louisiana ahead of the landfall. Fire Sergeant Ryan Clyde was requested to deploy with the team. The team arrived in Louisiana on August 27th and remained in the area for 6 days, assisting local, state, and federal assets with search and rescue missions. We get a lot of questions about what exactly is Task Force 1. So the South Carolina State Fire Marshal's Office defines Task Force 1 as an urban search and rescue team providing a coordinated response to disasters in urban environments, emphasizing location and extrication of victims trapped in largely populated areas. The task force is capable of responding to state and natural disasters, including earthquakes, hurricanes, widespread tornadoes, and man-made technological and terrorist events. So it's a pretty big deal to be a part of that team. So we're excited for Sergeant Clyde. He's put in a lot of time on his own. It's a voluntary a team for him to be a part of. He's put in countless hours, and he's only began back in 2019. So we're really proud that he was able to be a part of that deployment and represent the city on that high level. So thank you, Sergeant Clyde. And I noticed when I was writing my write-ups for the employees of the month that all of mine revolve around hurricanes. So here we go. So Captain Jason Perzan, on Thursday, September 17th, 2020, the remnants of Hurricane Sally brought torrential rain to Horry County. The afternoon hours, Conway fire crews responded to several reports of flooded roadways in the city. Approximately 9 p.m. that night, Horry County Fire Rescue crews were dispatched to an overturned vehicle on Cates Bay Highway with adults and children trapped in the floodwaters. Captain Jason Perzan was the on-duty shift commander and heard the emergency being dispatched over the radio. He knew that the resources for Horry County Fire Rescue were responding from a great distance, so he responded to the incident to assist. An Horry County Fire Rescue volunteer firefighter arrived on the scene of the incident and confirmed that multiple persons were trapped in the car and had been swept from the roadway and were trapped in the trees in a canal ditch. Captain Perzan arrived soon thereafter and on the scene to assist. He donned his personal flotation device and entered the floodwaters while secured to a utility safety rope, which was secured to a vehicle nearby. Captain Perzan, an Horry County Fire Rescue volunteer, and an Horry County police officer assisted in removing the adults and children to safety. This was above and beyond the normal call of duty, and for this, we recommend him for Employee of the Month. You hear a lot about all the calls that we go to, but this is definitely something that we don't normally respond to. So we're very proud. In addition to this, he will be recognized at the Horry County Council meeting tomorrow night, so I'll be receiving that award for him tomorrow night on behalf of the city. And for this, I recommend them both for Employees of the Month, September 2020, and they will also get 8 hours of vacation.
We absolutely concur. Thank you for your service well beyond what you typically do. You have the kinds of jobs that require that you report then when the event happens. We're very proud for you and proud of you as our own. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
God bless you, Bill. We are now at item 6 on the agenda, public input. I know that Craig Smith is here to speak relative to window signage, so we will hear from him first. What I didn't ask earlier, Madam Clerk, is whether or not we have satisfied the requirements of FOIA.
We have.
Thank you, ma'am. Just like for that to be a part of our record. Mr. Smith, how do you do?
Hey, how you doing?
Very good, sir. So, Mr. Smith, we're all here. We're very happy that you are too. And we will give you your full 5 minutes. I just wanted to sort of give you the particulars about public input. We will hear from you on any subject except about an individual employee. Of course, that would need to be taken up in a little bit more private venue. And you have 5 minutes to speak. If you're in the middle of your last sentence, I'll give you 5 more seconds, but thank you for being here.
I think you need to have control over the microphone, just cut it off. That's what I think.
No, well, what I didn't tell you is I really have a little trap door underneath where you are. And the switch for it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please, good evening.
Well, I think everybody knows me. I'm Craig Smith. I've lived here all my life, and I know each one of you, and I appreciate what y'all do and the time you spend to promote Conway. Conway's something I've always been proud of. People are envious of me because I live in Conway. You drive down Main Street and you see the jack-o'-lanterns and you see the fall festive things and you see the murals on the wall. We have a very welcoming and warm environment. Every day there's people that stand beside of our building taking pictures with that mural behind them. We've had no negative comments to me, only one on social media from out of town. And we've had no negative comments on the window signage that we use. 2 reasons for the signs in the window. One is we're in the morning sun. We spent $1,500 tinting the first window by the door. It did no good, and the man tinted it, said you're gonna have to put the blackout on it for it to prevent the fading on your merchandise. Square footage comes at a premium now and then when you have to buy it. And we try to utilize every square inch of floor space we got to sell. we try to offer as many products as we can so we can keep people shopping in Conway instead of going to Myrtle Beach. One of the main thrusts of the current sign ordinance is that signs should be oriented to sidewalk passerbyers and not traffic on the road. Well, why do we have a mural? Why do we put jack-o'-lanterns? Why do we put the fall festive things? Why do we put Santa Claus stuff out? It's to be a warm place to welcome people. There are a lot of people that don't know what you can buy in Conway. And my contention is if they drive down Main Street, they're going to the beach, most likely. Some go to Highway 90. And my contention is they are potential customers that are taking their money across the waterway to Myrtle Beach. And I believe the more we can entice them to stay here, the more prosperous our city will be. There's empty buildings, there's bad looking facades in Conway, but we try to do all we can. And we want to continue to have a prosperous business in town. We hire 9 employees right now. And I don't ask for special treatment. I ask for you to revisit the sign ordinance. One of the main things I was talking about, the passerby, is one of the bold prints that's a premise of some of the ordinances that are passed in there. Give the merchant a little bit of freedom. I've been a merchant since I was 20 years old. Give me some credit. I know something about building a business. And if it takes signage in the window, I don't do handwritten fluorescent signs. The sign of my son holding a pair of Hey Dudes serve 2 purposes. Lets people know we got Hey Dudes, and also it encourages participation on social media, which spreads out into everywhere. It's not confined to people that use the Facebook in Conway. It's open to everybody. That brings people to Conway. That's a welcoming conversation. It's friendly. So I ask that you look at the ordinance and try to give a little bit more discretion to the merchant, as long as it's in good taste. An example of what could be revisited is I understand it to be that as long as you're 12 inches back from the window, you can hang a banner. There's no regulations about putting profanity or vulgarity on that banner. Why not? That's what we should focus on, is keeping things politically correct as well as non-offensive. Companies spend millions and millions of dollars a year making these signs and making them available to merchants for free. Case Knife sent me on the Case Knife headquarters because they know it works. They know if you're going down Main Street, oh, Papa's General Store sells Case Knife. That's where you can go get one. That's the reason for it. And I admit that we're men, and I need a little bit more input from our lady employees as far as to situate the signs of the window, which would make it more appealing. But getting a ruler and measuring square inches is ridiculous. And I want the sun to be blocked out. I want to advertise my goods. Do we want me to blacken my windows so nobody can see in, but we able to protect our merchandise? Or do we even want a business downtown? What do we want? If we want to be pro-business and encourage businesses, give them the ability to use their creativeness to help business and help Conway grow. I've been a strong advocate for Conway all my life. And I appreciate each one of you's effort. You don't have to do this. You're elected and you make sacrifices. But I wish you would put a priority on your list about revisiting the ordinances. And I thank you for your time.
And Mr. Smith, what I didn't say early on, but intended to, is that we don't really interact after your comments, but I believe that you've been heard.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank
sir.
You, Mayor.
Good to see you. Are there other people on the outside waiting to speak under public input? If someone would check, please. There isn't. I was told that there would be some people. So in that there's no one waiting, Mr. Goldfinch.
Mayor, I move at this time to close public input.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Hammond.
I'll second Mr. Goldfinch.
We have a properly seconded motion to close public input at this time. All in favor with a show of hands. And that motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is item 7. Public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2020-1019A, amending the city's budget for fiscal year 2021. Ms. Allison Williams.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Purpose of this ordinance is to amend the current budget, general fund budget, to reflect the current needs of the city. The budget will include an increase of $213,340 to provide funding for a building inspector, 2 building maintenance technicians, and a part-time administrative assistant position. This amount also includes 2 vehicles and office supplies for those positions. Also include an increase of $600,000 for the purchase of property downtown to house several departments in the city. The current budget already includes $150,000 for continued planning on the new administrative building. Staff would like to repurpose those funds toward renovating the newly purchased building. Increase of $45,500 to provide funding for the master planning of the Whittemore site. These changes will increase the budget by $858,840. In addition to this amendment, we just wanted to let you know that we may be back by the end of the calendar year for an amendment for the hospitality fund. We're expecting a judgment in the case within the next few weeks. The city should receive additional funds in the settlement that staff would like to consider using to fund salaries in our police and ground maintenance positions. I'll try to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Ms. Goffin.
Where's that 850, that 800 and change coming from?
The fund balance.
Is that from our 14
Mhm.
change?
Mm-hmm.
This is a public
Right.
hearing also.
Yes.
It is for the increase in staff, is that, I know we've got a gentleman that's out, and so there's a little bit of a need there.
For the
Is
inspector.
that to fill until he comes back, or this a permanent thing, or, I mean, where are we at on that?
Sure. So if you remember Robert Cooper speaking at the last meeting, we are down an inspector right now, and we are up on inspections to the point where if you compare our number of inspections to other cities and standards where we should be, we are far below the number of employees that we need to be able to keep up with the inspections that we have, even if we were fully staffed. So adding that other inspector is needed, whether we get Mr. Hill back or not. We need that other inspector position. The 2 other positions for building maintenance technicians, if we do obtain the building downtown, we do not have the ability currently to do that in-house, the renovations in-house in a timely manner, unless we hire somebody else or sub it out. If we hire contractors, it'll be far more expensive than if we're able to do it in-house, which is why there's those 2 positions on this budget consideration. And then the part-time position would be filled once that new building is ready to be occupied for that front desk person for a part-time position.
Before we go further, sir, if you don't mind, let's do the public hearing first, and then we'll get back to our regular discussion. Would someone please check to see if there's anyone in the public who'd like to be heard on this matter? Thank you so much. Is there a motion in close public hearing? Mr. White,
Mayor, move that we close the public hearing on this issue.
Mr. Hyman,
I'll second Mr. White's motion.
we have a properly seconded motion to close the public hearing on this matter. All in favor with a show of hands, please. And motion carries unanimously. And now for our own discussion. Mr. Goldfinch, if you continue, please.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And if we need a staff member, I certainly want to hear it. I haven't heard of any issues, and I know a lot of contractors, well, we can't get to you until Tuesday, or in other words, when they call for inspection, somebody's been there.
We have 40 house plans right now in review. If we were to approve them all tomorrow, you would have their phone ringing off the hook. We are actually sort of deliberately slowing our approvals of house plans so that we can make sure we keep up with them on inspections. So we are nearing our window on each one of those for approvals. And if we don't start approving them more quickly, you're going to start hearing about it. And then we won't be able to inspect them if we do.
Well, I certainly want to do what we need to do. I'm just, and I've expressed it, and I'll continue to express. I'm just a little nervous about
We are with you 100%.
next year's budget and bringing on new people. And, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone, Ms. James?
Adam, I guess this question is for you. In terms of both the inspector and a new person to come in to help renovate this building, do we have people available, or, I mean, are we go shoot in the dark and hope the magic person
Well,
shows
we
up?
would certainly open it to anybody, whether in-house or out of the city, not currently employed by the city. We love to hire from within, but these would be two new positions, new positions completely. So they wouldn't necessarily have to come with an existing city staff. But if we have them, we already know them, and that's where we like.
How will this be advertised?
We advertise just generally for all employment matters. You know, we put it out wide. We get lots of responses when we advertise for positions.
Anyone else? There being no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to relative to approving or denying first reading. Mr. White?
May I move that we approve first reading?
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? Mr. Jordan?
Second, Mr. White's motion.
We have a properly seconded motion to pass first reading of this particular ordinance. All in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Item 8 is first reading without a public hearing of ordinance ZA 2020-1019B, an ordinance to annex approximately an acre of property located at 4115 Highway 813, PIN 29413030015, and request to rezone from Horry County Commercial Forest Agriculture to City of Conway Low Density Residential. Ms. Hyman.
Yes, as you all know, city staff recently sent letters out to different property owners within the city that had restrictive covenants and were now contiguous areas that we consider donut holes. The next several items on your agenda are as a result of that. So this is one that we sent a letter and then they sent in the paperwork. So
Wonderful.
this helps to fill those donut holes.
Wonderful. What is the pleasure of the council? Mr. Hubbard?
I move to annex the property, Mayor.
Thank you. And yes, sir. You approved first reading?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? Ms. Timms?
I second the motion.
We have a properly seconded motion to approve first reading of ordinance ZA 2020-1019B. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor with a show of hands, please. The motion carries unanimously. Item B is first reading of ordinance ZA 2020-1019C, an ordinance to annex approximately an acre of property located at 4211 Bradford Drive, PIN 29413030019, and request to rezone from Horry County Commercial Forest Agriculture to City of Conway Low Density Residential. Ms. Hyman.
And this is another of the same situation, an
you,
existing
ma'am.
home with restrictive covenant.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Timms?
I make a motion, we accept first reading.
Thank you. Ms. Timms moves that we move forward. Mr. Jordan?
Second.
We have a properly seconded motion to approve first reading of ordinance ZA 2020-1019C. Is there any discussion? Mr. Hubbard?
No, I don't have any discussion. I thought
Okay. You just went ahead of me. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor with a show of hands, please. And that motion also carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Item C, first reading of ordinance ZA 2020-1019D, an ordinance to annex approximately an acre and a half of property located at 4123 Hagwood Circle, PIN 29413030005, and request to rezone from Horry County Commercial Forest Agriculture to City of Conway Low Density Residential. Ms. Hyman.
And this is the same situation also.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion? Mr. Wright?
May I move that we accept the first reading on this ordinance?
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Goldfinch?
I second, Mr. White.
We have a properly seconded motion to approve first reading of ordinance ZA 2020-1019D. Is there discussion? Mr. White?
Yes, ma'am. I don't know whether this is illegal or not, but I want to ask, since the last two is basically the same thing, could we not lump the three of them together?
Good. So why don't I do the lumping right now? All right. So as we consider item C, please consider also first reading of ordinance ZA 2020-1019E, an ordinance to annex approximately an acre of property at 4137 Highway 813, PIN 29413030017, and request to rezone from Horry County Commercial Forest Agriculture to City of Conway Low Density Residential. And item E, first reading of ordinance ZA 2020-1019F, an ordinance to annex approximately half an acre of property located at 285 Wedding Lane, PIN 36713010023, and request to rezone from Horry County Residential to City of Conway Low Density Residential. And Ms. Hyman, we know your answer. You're going to say that these are all the same.
And do I need to redo my motion?
Would you just say that your motion is to approve first reading of of C, D, and E?
C, D, and E?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So moved.
Yeah, okay. Let me get a second first. Is there a second? Mr. Hyman?
I'll second Mr. Watson's motion.
I think Mr. Goldfinch already did, but just to make sure we've got another. Ms. Timms, you have a question.
I have a question. It may just be that this is something good left out. B, C, D are Horry County Commercial Forest Agriculture. I'm not sure what that is.
It's just their zoning district is CFA. A lot of the county is zoned CFA. It allows residential.
Agriculture and commercial.
It's when they rezoned the county back in, I think, the late 90s, a lot of it was just CFA and some of it was FA. CFA allows a little more than FA, but they do allow single family homes, but it is.
Doesn't say commercial forest. It just says.
It was residential.
This is a different zone.
Which is a different zone.
Anyone else? That concluding our discussion and our questions. All in favor of the approval of first reading of items C, D, and E, please indicate with a show of hands. And this motion carries unanimously. Thank you all so much. Item 9 is final reading of ordinance ZA 2020-0720A, an ordinance to rezone approximately almost 5 acres of property located at 2999 4th Avenue, TMS 136-1206002, from City of Conway low to medium density residential to highway commercial. Ms. Hyman.
Yes, you may remember this request. It came before you a few months ago. Since that time, the agent and applicant, Mike Wooten with DDC Engineer, has had a meeting with the neighborhood per council's request. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on it, and Mr. Wooten is here also.
Okay. I think that was by Mr. Wooten's offer, which we would certainly appreciate. Mr. Wooten, we'd certainly be happy to hear from you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, appreciate the opportunity to come before you today. As you know, we've been working to get this piece of property rezoned for several years. First, I know that the city wanted to make sure that they clearly understood the connection points for the loop that was going in as part of the RIDE program. Now that that is taken, I apologize, I should have cut this thing off. I came in. Now that that's been taken care of, we clearly understand that that is not a traffic concern in this particular area. I met with 4 members of the community in this facility about 2 weeks ago. We made the offer to them that if there were any, their great concern was we don't have a plan. There is no plan of action to develop this property. Our client simply wants to rezone it to allow it to be developed to its highest and best use, which meets the city's comprehensive plan. So they were concerned about some of the things that are allowable under that zoning. I made the offer for them to submit us a list of those things that they considered objectionable. I would run it past my client and we would deed restrict the property on those things that they could mutually agree on. I never got a list. I know my client, he's a good man. He's not going to want to put anything objectionable on that valuable piece of property. Some of the things that they called out, I don't think would fit there anyway. But we respectfully request y'all's favorable consideration. I know we got staff and planning commission and y'all voted at your last meeting for approval at first reading. We think it's the highest and best use for the property, and obviously from your long-range plan, y'all do as well. So I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions of Mr. Wood? Mr. Goldfinch?
Thank you, Mayor. Wooden, what were some of their concerns of what they had done there?
They brought up liquor store, they brought up convenience store, heavy traffic items. Again, it's a 4-acre tract. It's way too big for a C-store. There is a pretty nice C-store on the other side of the road a little further down. I don't think frankly, there's no need for another one in that location.
Let me interrupt you. That's interesting because I started looking around Wilco, which I'm assuming is Wilco gas station, owns that parcel on Creel Street in 701.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't
So
aware.
I just presume there will be a big gas station there at some point.
Maybe these C
They
stores,
already own it and it's done.
right? These C stores, I'm familiar with them on 701, 707, 544. They'll buy a piece of property they think is hot at the time and then sit on it and then flip it years later. Don't know what their plans are for this particular piece of property.
Anyone else? Mr. White?
Mayor, there is also a church that's being built
Yes, sir.
adjacent to that building also, this piece of property. So how would that affect that church that's coming in there?
Well, the church would affect that property. Under rules and regulations, if the church is there are a lot of things you can't do adjacent to a house of worship or a school. So this won't affect them. They will affect this because obviously they're going to be there before my client's property is, if he had a use for it today, it would have to be designed, permitted, and built. And right now, the way that's working, it's taking anywhere from 8 months to a year to get that done. The church is way ahead of, I spoke to him last week. He has no idea of who's going to buy it and no idea of what's going to go on it.
Thank you.
Ms. Timms?
Mr. Wooten,
Yes, ma'am.
originally, when all this first started, we looked at that parcel, and I particularly was concerned because of the school down the road and the curve, which makes it difficult to see.
Yes, ma'am.
And, but at that point in time, I thought that there would be a stoplight there. And the Waccamaw cog or DOT or whoever makes these worldwide decisions took it out. So I'm concerned about the amount of congestion on a curve with a lot of children there.
Well, for one thing, part of the site issue are, as you can see, the trees on that site. If it's ever developed or when it is developed, the odds are most of those trees are going to come off, which dramatically increases your visibility around that curve. You can look across instead of having to crane your neck or creep out in order to see. With the signal aspects, as you know, I served on the Highway Commission for 5 years.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of that trying to help get that signal, but they have hard and fast rules about what's called a warrant analysis. And you have to have the right amount of traffic to warrant a signal. To give you an example, what used to be Loris Hospital on Highway 9 is a pretty nice facility. And they were trying to get a signal and tried to get a signal there for years, even after it was taken over by McLeod. But until the development was built across the street, that provided enough traffic to meet the warrants, they couldn't get a signal. I wouldn't think that what goes on this property would help them warrant a signal at this location. There's just, while there is some congestion there, it's not anywhere near enough for them to even look at it. That road at that point is a level of service A under Waccamaw Regional's analysis. So, you know, it's while they may have some trouble getting out in the mornings or turning left to get in there in the afternoons, it's hard to argue with a level of service A on a road like that.
And what level, sir, what level do they require? If that's A now, is there a letter attached to it?
Well, to give you an example, Highway 501 is a level of service F.
Okay.
So, you know, that road flows very, very well. And one reason that DOT requires warrants, a warrant analysis, is they look at a traffic signal like you and I look at a kink in a garden hose. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you've got a signal, traffic grinds to a halt and then has to accordion and pick back up again. If you could take 501 and eliminate the signals and make everything an interchange instead of an intersection, you could get that road back up probably to a level of service B by simply eliminating the signals. Mm-hmm. But the kinks in the garden hose create the need to go through, in some places, you have to sit through 2 light changes on 501 during busy hours to get where you want to go. So that's why that level of service is what it is.
All right, SCDOT has made it very clear to us that their interest is moving traffic.
Yes, ma'am. Not letting it sit still.
I'm not sure whose hand was up first. Mr. Harmon?
Well, Mayor, I was going to make a motion to approve final reading on this, but Mr. Goldfinch has a question. I did have a question, but then I was going to do exactly that too. If I may just ask my question. Only 2 folks, there was one email from a lady that lived on Sawyer Street. I did speak to 2 folks that live back on Gordon Circle that were concerned about ingress, egress, but I think you addressed that we would not provide that flow through the neighborhood.
My idea for development of this site was to get access, ingress and egress off the highway, not off the residential street.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Mr. Hubbard?
I'll second Mr. Hyman's motion.
Okay, we have properly seconded motion then to approve second reading of this ordinance. I understand that we shouldn't say a lot about why we vote one way or another, but I do want to say to you, Mr. Wooten, that I particularly respect the fact that you put effort into working with community. That means a lot to me. My vote will remain as it was first time. I just think it's a bad idea, but I certainly respect what your attempt has been with the people who live there. So with that motion on the floor, all in favor with a show of hands, please. We have Mr. Jordan, Ms. Timms, Mr. Hubbard, Mr. Goldfinch, and Mr. Hyman. And those opposed, please. Mr. White and yours truly.
Thank
and
you,
it
Mayor.
passes.
Thank y'all.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Item 10, item for consideration A. Request for waiver of sidewalk requirements for the proposed residential subdivision to be located at the intersection of Culture Road and Oak Street, as well as approval of a name for this new subdivision, Culture Point. Ms. Hyman.
Yes, and this is a little confusing, so I'll try to explain it. We have Ryan Harvey here, who's actually the applicant and engineer also.
Welcome, Mr. Harvey.
This parcel is actually going to be 2 different developments. So you'll see the next item on the agenda is for one portion. One development will be the parcels along the roadway, and that's the request for Cultura Point. And they're asking for the sidewalk waiver along Cultura only, not along Oak Street. And then the next is for the larger parcel behind it. That's the next request. But I just kind of want to explain, there's 2 different names because it's 2 different ownerships. But the request for the Culture Point name, like I said, is for those parcels along Culture Road. They are requesting a waiver of the sidewalk requirements because, and Ryan can explain this more. I know you've spoken to DOT and there are concerns about not only the safety of sidewalks along Cultura, but the long-term, the GSAT's plan shows that Cultura will be widened one day. So if sidewalks were installed, that could become a problem later. So they are instead requesting that rather than building those sidewalks, that they do the sidewalk fee in lieu. And you can see on this graphic, the red shows the sidewalks that are already in the area. So there's no connectivity at this point. However, they are planning on providing sidewalks along Oak Street, which I know is something that council has wanted in the past. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and then Ryan can also.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments relative to the question before us? Mr. Hubbard.
Are the setbacks, the back setbacks along Culture, considering the widening of Culture Road?
They are. The way that Ryan is, we don't have those plans as of yet, but we're working with him on that. And from what I understand, he is taking into consideration the widening, and then the setbacks will be from that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So David Wellens is the owner of those lots on Cultura. So he's already figured in doing a 30-foot front setback. So it's only a 15-foot required, but he's going to go ahead and set back 30. So that way, when they do come through and widen the road, it doesn't affect the houses that he's building.
And Ms. Hyman, I think this is probably for you. When you say widen the road, are we thinking just a widening or a 4-laning? Right, that's what I expected. And you think that the extra 15 feet that you just spoke of is sufficient? I mean, that's outside of the realm of what we're concerned with, but.
Right, and they don't have set plans for that yet, but that's something we can work with Ryan on.
Sure. Because we also don't know, do we, whether or not it would expand on the other side? Okay. All right.
We planned on 100-foot right of way. So right now it's currently 66 feet. So it's 32 additional feet. So it's 17 each side of the road.
I see.
So they would go to the other side of the road on the existing properties and get 17, and then we would have 15. So we would actually end up getting 2 foot out of the front setback.
All right. That would do away with some of those properties across the street. They're right on the road. Okay. Thank you so much. So we'll entertain motion. Excuse me, Mr. Schofield. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Mayor, I move that we approve the said request for waiver and the name Ultra Point.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? Mr. Hyman.
I would second Mr. Goldfinch's motion.
We have a properly seconded motion to both approve the fee in lieu of a sidewalk that would ordinarily be required for the edge of that parcel or those parcels, and the adoption of the name Cultura Point. Mr. White.
Question. I apologize.
Not at all.
But you were saying that if you were going to take land from the other side of the street, and those persons who own property there presently, are they aware that they're going to lose some of their land at some point in time?
I'm sure they don't. Not the DOT, when they always go in a wide road. They go from the center line of the road and they widen it on both sides according to that center line of the road. So they're not having to rebuild the existing road that's there, or just widen outside of what they already have.
Well, when will they know, or will they ever know that this is going to happen to their property? They're going to lose some land for the road.
I mean, it'll be in 10 years from now when they start building the plans for that line.
As far as I know,
DOT will
there's
reach
not
out
approved
to
any funding for this road. It's
Right,
not-
it's just in a
Right.
plan now, but they don't have a timeline from what I understand on it quite yet. But it is something that when the city is reviewing plans, we're trying to take it into consideration because it is on the plan.
But it's SCDOT and the property owners and not the developer
Correct.
and the
Right.
property owners.
That's correct.
Anyone else? With there being no further comments, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approval of the said motion, please show with your hand. And there are 6 people who vote yes. And those opposed, the showing of hands. Mr. White opposes, but the motion carries. Thank you so much. Item B is a request for approval of a name for the new proposed residential subdivision to be located at the intersection of Culture Road and Oak Street, that being Kingston Point. Ms.
And
Hyman.
And after this was included in the packet, I was informed by our fire chief, we already have a Kingston Point.
I
and
thought we did.
I apologize, that's not something that even registered with us. Originally, the request was for Kingston Park, and we said that's not going to work because we have a
No,
Kingston Park. So this is the second. So I think since that time, I've been talking with the developer, and I think the new name is Kingston Bay. Kingston Bay.
Kingston
So
Bay.
if we could change that request to Kingston Bay.
All right. And does that meet the standards for giving proper notice? Okay.
All the
All right.
ordinance requires is that city council approve the name.
Okay. All right.
Is
Very
this
good.
a bay?
Oh, let's hope not.
Well, I mean, that doesn't make
Well, neither is it a
sense to me.
point. Well, it is. Well, anyway, but
Yeah,
I think there's a Carolina Bay out there.
If you look, a lot of the property is wet, so you could consider it.
okay. Yeah, I thought that might be demeaning.
You can see it at the bottom. Yeah.
All right.
Might be a
If
stretch.
you would be happy with Kingston Bay, we'll consider Kingston Bay. So is there a motion? Mr. Goldfinch.
I move that we approve the name Kingston.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hubbard, I'm sorry. Mr. Jordan, do you have a
Second, Mr. Goldfinch.
Thank you. We have a probably seconded motion to approve the name Kingston Bay. All in favor with a show of hands. And that motion carries unanimous. Ms. Timms, is your, did you vote yes? Okay. It's unanimous. Thank you so much. Item C, consideration of renewal of the City of Conway's mask ordinance. Mr. Emmerich.
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
As you may remember, 2 council meetings ago, we renewed the mask ordinance when we also renewed the state of emergency declaration. That mask ordinance is scheduled to expire tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. unless renewed at this meeting. So before you is consideration of renewing the mask mandate in the city of Conway through November 3rd, 2020 at 9 a.m., which would be the Tuesday after our next city council meeting. I can go through all the statistics and timelines if you need it again, but I think y'all are very well aware of where we are.
I see hands. I think we're ready to act. Ms. Timms.
I make a motion, we renew this through November the 3rd.
Mr. Hubbard.
I'll second.
We have a properly seconded motion to renew the mask ordinance as it sits. Let me ask you something just as a reminder, and I'm sincere for me. What is the age at which the wearing of a mask is required?
I believe it was,
You can land on 6, right?
I thought it was less than 8.
I think it was 8. Maybe it's
California is 2.
And I'm not,
5.
I thought it was 5, but we're advertising 8. And we can't enforce what
Where were we advertising it
on the access channel.
we will fix that. That was the initial one was 8.
Yeah, because we discussed 8 and then we had
Mhm.
5.
Yeah.
We'll correct that tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you so much. Just want to make sure we're actually doing what we say.
Absolutely.
All right. So I think we've got a properly seconded motion that sits. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. And now while you're there, we'll just go ahead with the city
I brought
administrator's
my notes
report.
with me. Very good. Update on the 4th Avenue utility conversion project. We walked the site with our engineering consultant last week again. We've been told that 4th Avenue will be resurfaced in 2 weeks. Now, we've been told that before, but barring any further delays, Mayor, are you all right?
Yeah, I am. I just noticed that one of our officers at the door. I just wondered if he was
Oh, okay.
trying to get our attention. So,
All right.
yeah.
Barring any further delays, 2 weeks is the timeline for resurfacing 4th Avenue. We've heard that before. I think DOT and our contractors have got it all worked out though. So weather permitting, hopefully they'll be out there within 2 weeks. They plan to start on a Sunday nighttime with the construction and not be able to do the work during the day. So it'll be nighttime resurfacing unless something changes. That's the plan. The equipment currently staged at the intersection of 4th and Kingston is also scheduled to start being removed this week. We've been asking for it to be removed now for several weeks. It's sort of reached a point where it is not needed there anymore, and we need to be able to assess the condition of that parking lot to see if we need to do any work on that. We know that there are some tenants looking at some of the buildings there, and us getting that equipment out of there will help facilitate those being rented. Of course, then we need to work on the parking lot, but we can't even tell what condition it's in until the equipment is gone. We have looked at some new designs of that parking lot. The way it's currently designed, there are 3 entrances to that parking lot, one on Kingston, 2 off of Norman Alley. There is some parallel parking, some angled parking, a lot of unnecessary concrete, and some weird jogs and sidewalks. So we need to re-look at that and make it function better, make it more efficient. I think we can squeeze a few more parking places and some better landscaping in there all at the same time. So we'll be doing that as we get the material out of there and see what we have left.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Along that line, if the proposed development actually happens within a reasonable amount of time, will our use of funds to prepare, clearly some improvement needs to be done, but will we be spinning our own wheels by doing this new proposed relaying of the land?
Well, the part of the reason we haven't already done this parking lot was because we knew we'd be working on 4th Avenue's utility conversion. So far as I know, none of the construction projects in that area would rely upon staging on our parking lot. Now that might be the case, but that has not been made aware of to me. I would hate to spend the money on resurfacing the parking lot only to destroy it by staging, but it's something we'll take into consideration, and we can look at that as well from a timing aspect. We also want to make sure it's safe enough that people aren't tripping and falling or wrecking their car on that parking lot as well. And it's not there yet,
ours.
so that we can tell, but it's in pretty bad shape.
Yeah. Thank you.
But we'll look at that as well. We met with RJ Corman last week. There is an old railroad trestle over Crabtree Canal between Main Street and Sherwood. If you've ever walked the Crabtree Greenway, it's usually where it's flooded is where the railroad trestle is. They plan to rebuild that bridge. It is 100 years old or older. No one quite knows how old it is, but it's old. There are a number of pilings in the ground that are no longer being used in Crabtree itself. And there's a span of about 10 feet between pilings. So if you think of anything that washes down Crabtree trying to get out of Crabtree, it gets caught on that railroad trestle often. It's very difficult to get in there to remove it. Our equipment can't always reach it. RJ Corman's equipment can't always reach it. And it causes some backup. They plan to rebuild the bridge to make it safer for their trains to travel over it. And they're going to increase the span widths as well by using concrete instead of wood pilings. So going from 10 feet apart to 30 feet apart, which will greatly improve the flow of water through that area. There is some other work that's going on in that area that they're working on, but what they'll be using is the entrance to Crabtree Greenway at Main Street. They'll be using all that area for their staging, as well as the Crabtree Greenway for ingress and egress. When they complete the project, they're going to help us by removing the asphalt that is in such bad shape there and restoring it to a very compacted base material, which will be easier to maintain going forward. That will help us tremendously. They're also going to restore the parking lot into a better condition than it is today as well with the same sort of material. So that's a big help for us. The established 1732 language was added to the sign at Collins Park. Next on my list is to remind you that the Coastal Carolina is now a perfect 3-0 on the year. We upset Arkansas State on Saturday. We didn't just upset them, we blew them out, which was fantastic to see. I was doing a little bit of Googling on the game this morning, and Grayson McCall, the quarterback, was mentioned as one of the top 12 players of the weekend by USA Today. It's always nice to see Coastal get national press, especially on football weekends. This weekend, Coastal has had a game moved. It's actually this Saturday. It was not supposed to be this Saturday, so they were supposed to have a bye week. It's been moved. They play Louisiana Lafayette in Lafayette, and it will be televised on ESPN2, which will make it the 4th consecutive week that Coastal's been on national television. So ESPN2 if you want to watch the game.
May I please just insert a sentence? I heard one of the telecasters say, and here I am in Myrtle Beach. God, I wanted to get into that screen and remind him.
You should write a sternly worded letter.
Teach him that he was in Conway, South Carolina. I'm sorry. Had to say it.
Put up a banner next time.
Our name is on the scoreboard. And that's good. That we should do that. Give them a medallion. This is a rendering of the suggested medallion we have for the Riverwalk. This was actually part of the branding of 2013 that was done for the city, but to my knowledge, we've not used the symbol that is a boat moored at the Riverwalk and then the Riverwalk word. If you are all in favor of this, we will begin trying to sell some of these for the Riverwalk.
What
They're
size?
wonderful.
6 by 6.
Please don't say memory of it.
I know, right? I was checking that out. I was checking that out, Adam. I'd have somebody pitch me.
Does this look good?
It's
Is this-
very attractive.
Okay.
Very attractive.
Wonderful. All right. Well, you should see something rolling out about that. Finally, I'm going to yield the rest of my time for department reports from our Technology Services Director, Jeff LaValle, and our Ground Maintenance Director, Timmy Williams. Yes,
Wonderful.
before
Ms.
that.
Timms.
Before you leave, couple of questions. You talked a lot about R.J. Corman, but all these railroad ties that are placed along the railroad tracks now, is that because they're gonna lay a whole new track?
Yeah, they are removing the old railroad ties, laying new ones, and upgrading the rail as they go. The rail is currently over 100 years old in some sections, which limits not only the speed but also the load of their
That's
trail.
probably a good thing.
Whether that is or not is not something that we have the ability to govern. The railroad governs themselves basically by federal law.
Well, the other thing I wanted to question, and I've already sent you a text about it, but I don't know that anybody except people on my side of town would be aware of this. At 5 a.m. about Monday of last week, the train came through blowing the whistle, and all of Conway is awake on that side of town. And nobody was happy, but we were all awake. Now, is this gonna be a regular one, and what will we blowing the horn at?
They do the railroad, when they cross the roads, they have to blow the horn. If it's a regular or not,
Lay on the horn.
we don't have any control over that.
I feel
Well, we
your,
will when all the
I feel your
neighbors start
pain.
hollering.
when I lived on 14th Avenue, I was within a city block of the railroad, and it was more like 4:45 a.m. But yeah,
Well, by the time they got me.
but it was
they're gonna
regular.
slow this
It was
down.
every day at that point. I guess.
Well,
it
it's been
depends
shut
on-
down now for a number of years, and I think people forget what it was like when it was running regularly. And it's
louder
going
than
to
it
be
used to be.
running more regularly now.
Well, one other question about it, and that is, in honor of Tom Anderson, what about the,
So what SCDOT said last time we asked them was once RJ Corman has their line replaced and is ready to roll at speed, then they will do a reevaluation of the intersections to see which are needed to have the mast arms for safety. They will not review it until then.
Gene, why don't you go up there and teach them some horn etiquette?
I need to help them out a little bit, don't I?
I'll get you a phone number.
I'll use it.
Yes, sir.
Adam, am I right? They can't do passenger rails without them being replaced too?
Yes, that's right. Right now, it's not rated for anything but very low speed freight. And I don't know that that's their goal when they redo the railing, but I believe that when they upgrade the rails, that could be a possibility.
I don't remember what the guy's name was that I talked to at Stroma one time, and he had said that the goal eventually was to have it where they could do something with passenger, but the track was in such bad shape that it was going to be a while.
And we've talked to them a number of times about this topic. RJ Corman is a freight rail. It doesn't preclude the possibility of passenger rail, but that is not what their bread and butter is. Certainly something we'd love to see. And we've talked to them about it. Like I said, it's been a conversation we've had a number of times. In fact, when we met last week, we mentioned it to them again. It just, if we can make it happen, we will, but it's not their priority.
And Adam, on that note, could we possibly then talk to other community leaders like Myrtle Beach and Loris and Marion or whoever else comes through and see if that's something that they would like to see is a passenger rail?
Sure, and we've done that as well.
Okay,
It's where it's possible, it is wanted.
Thank you.
Yes,
across the board.
across the board.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Jeff. We never hear from you. So this is a real treat.
Is that a good thing?
No, I think we're missing out on something.
Well, we are a behind the scenes department. You don't see a lot of the work that we do because we're not out and about in town and make things nice. But what we do is we give the equipment to the city employees and support the city employees. They're our customers, to give them the tools to do their job. And Some of the things that we've been working on with the advent of COVID-19, we configured well over 24 computers, laptops, got them to employees so they could work from home. We expanded our VPN capabilities that allow them to work from home just like they're sitting in the office. We managed to manipulate the phone system to redirect calls for departments that were working from home, so to get the phones over to them or to other departments. We also worked with staff getting all these virtual meetings up and running. Not only city council, we had virtual meetings for all boards and commissions, as well as city staff. As that happened, we also gathered the equipment to go live and put these meetings live now on both YouTube and the Access channel, which the city had never done before up until June 1st. So every meeting is broadcast live other than a slight delay today. But that was on the other end. We installed a new citywide camera system. We installed 3 new servers, one here at the rec center, one at public safety, and one out at 378. We integrated all the city cameras into these systems. They have enough storage where we can hold over 30 days worth of history for well over 200 cameras citywide. We've also expanded the cameras once we put those systems in place to include the new HR building, finance, and out at the warehouse. And we brought the recreation cameras that were in-house here only tied into the city cameras. So now the police department can monitor these other buildings directly from their office as well. We also acquired, set up, and deployed 4 new portable cellular-based camera systems for the police department. These are deployed in high crime areas. They're completely self-contained. We put them up on telephone poles, and they have 4 cameras on them, and the police can actually bring up the cameras on a cell phone or on a computer in the station and monitor what's going on in these areas. We currently have 8 of those portable cameras deployed. 4 of them are cellular. We're going to continue to get the cellular ones from here on out because that allows us to actually see what's going on without driving out there and retrieving the video. We set up a wireless bridge between this building and the old recreation center out back. What that allows us to do is put employees out there and they can connect to the network here, just like they're sitting in this building. But it's all wireless technology. That's probably one of the technologies that I'm gonna leverage initially with the new building if that happens, to get it connected back to the city before we look into underground wire and things like that. We've installed 2 new phone controllers for our in-house phone system. Those phone controllers, the old ones were aging, and these new controllers extend the life of the city phone system for another 10 years. And lastly, we recently finished an upgrade to all the police and fire mobile computers. That included their dispatch software, their reporting software, and their ticket writing software. We just finished that update 2 weeks ago. And I hope that for any questions for you.
Ms. Jones?
Well, I wasn't going to ask a question. I was just going to make a comment. Jeff managed to get all of us on the Zoom meeting, which I think was some sort of a miracle, including
You did a good
myself.
job. You did a
And
good
all I
job.
can say is you better be mighty glad Arby Coon's not with us.
Jeff, mine comes in the means of a compliment as well. You do what you do very well, first and foremost, and we thank you for it. You have a really broad base of knowledge about things that everyday folk like me know very, very little about. And I think it would be really good if you had the time, to take the time to do sort of a 5-minute kind of talk to our residents on the Access channel. You and I had a conversation one day about things that we don't think of as being robots, but they clearly are. The Alexa in my home, for example. And you made a comment about how you'd never have anything like that in your home. But I just think that there's so much general, fun, interesting information that if you had the time to put together just a really cool overview on robots in homes and what how they work, what they do, what they're gathering about you as you're using them. I think there's a lot of interest in that sort of thing.
That's something we could do.
Awesome. I think it'd be great, a great general information for the Access Channel. And secondly, my last comment is very, very personal and very, very selfish. I don't have a camera on my monitor in the mayor's office.
We can take care of that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That's all I need, Mr. Goldfinch.
Thank you. Jeff, have we any idea how many people are tuning in to YouTube or watching these meetings?
It depends on the meeting. It does give us statistics for every single meeting. When I looked for this particular meeting, there was like 6 people on the YouTube channel. The same YouTube channel is actually broadcast on the Access channel, so it's the same stream. It's just a different venue. But other meetings, I've seen as many as 30 or 40 people viewing the meeting during the meet. It all depends on what's on the agenda. That'll drive the number of people that see it. We can always go back to the meetings on YouTube and look at the statistics afterwards as well.
Awesome. Mr. Hubbard?
I think the ratings go down when I show up. But, my question is, the cameras that we have installed to the police department, are they recording the whole time? Can we go
Yes.
back in time and look at something?
Yes. They
That's
record, or they hold history for at least 30 days. They have a good sized hard drive in them. It's all in a weather tight box. Everything is contained inside that box, and the 4 cameras are mounted on the outside. It's pretty inconspicuous looking, and they're mounted up high on a telephone pole. And once it's there, most people don't even notice that they're there. They record. We've had one at on 378 across the street from the Shree Mini Mart, and we've gone back and we've pulled history out of that thing over 30 days old. So it depends on how busy the area is as well. The busier the area, the less time, because they're motion sensitive. Every time a car goes by, the camera starts recording. But if it's a quieter area, you're going to have a longer history.
Thank you.
Makes sense. Anyone else? Well, Jeff, I just want to, on behalf of all of us, including our residents, want to thank you for all you do. It just, I can't imagine our not having the use of technology that's been made available to us and that's been kept up by you and your crew, especially during this pandemic.
Technology is these days and times is a must.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you too. Remember that camera. Hey, Timmy Williams, how do you do? Always glad to see you.
Glad to see you all too. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to y'all this afternoon. I'm just going to give you an overview of the department and goals and where we headed at. Current department, of course, you got 1 ground maintenance director, 1 office assistant, a manager over maintenance, 4 supervisors, and 9 ground maintenance technicians. And on the busiest grass cutting season, we have 3 summer workers. We currently are 2 positions short at this time. I'm working with human resources at this time to try to fill those 2 positions. Also, just now, about 45 minutes ago, I got another one out on medical leave. So I'm short 4 people at this time. We working to get those other 2 positions filled out. Maybe that'll make up the difference for the 2 that's out, but I'm still short 4. My biggest goal for the department is make sure everybody go home safe. And how I'm doing that is make sure we have regular staff meetings, safety meetings, because we are out there in the right of way doing grass cutting. So we want to make sure everybody go home at the end of the day. That's my biggest #1 goal for this department. We got a greenhouse that we in process of we about got it finished. We got to do some electrical. So we're working on that so we can start taking those pots that we have downtown and taking those flowers and bringing them into the greenhouse and use them for next year. Because in the past, what we've been doing is taking those flowers and just offloading them and getting rid of them. So now we're going to try to cut some of that cost out. The maintaining of the cemeteries, we try to keep them at a high level and make sure that the unsightly debris is out of there on a scheduled basis. Trim the trees and shrubs that's in the right of way. We're continuing planting it in the public right of way, like Highway 501. Highway 501. Let's talk about Highway 501. That is the most dangerous road between here and Myrtle Beach. So what we have been doing is coming in the midnight hours working on 501. It needs some attention now, so we are planning to go on those right of ways at night to make sure that those medians are maintained and any debris, we try to remove those out. But it is a dangerous being out there on 501. I just want to bring that
Timmy,
to
do you
y'all
mind if we
attention.
interrupt you while you're talking?
Sure.
So I'm thinking about those islands east of the river on 501 that tend to be just kind of blah because we have tried some plantings and it just hadn't worked out and maintenance is an issue. I mean, has DSS has DOT given us permission to do any particular thing or restricted what we can put in those islands?
What they allowed us to do, from my understanding, they give us a guideline and we follow that guideline for flowers or shrubs. They want trees out there that if a car run over there, they break away.
Right.
We got reflectors on the end caps of them to prevent that. But riding the other day, I saw some was tore down. So they done their job, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just wondering if there's some kind of shrub that has a history of lastability.
So DOT's regulations basically dictate the size of caliper of a trunk at maturity that can be within so many feet of a roadway, depending on the roadway speed and depending on if there's curbing on that roadway. So for a road like 501 that has curbing, you've got to set back the species of tree, I think it's 20 feet from the edge of pavement. So it's really hard to believe that that's how big those center medians are, but they really are that big. So the crepe myrtles that are there are right center of the medians, basically. There's also drainage in those medians, so you have to avoid the drainage. And if you want to fill those in and make it ideally, we would fill those in with muhly grass or some ornamental grass that gets high enough to discourage litter and kind of becomes a thicket.
Right.
We would have to plant tens of thousands of muhly grass sprigs in those medians to fill them up to where we're not having to go out there and cut and kill all the debris that gets in there and litter and pick up the litter. And because of the speed, you can't use anything that is a caliper, I think above a 2-inch caliper at maturity, which limits us to, I think it's crepe myrtles, river birch maybe is one of them. There's like only three species of something that is considered a tree that you can actually plant in the DOT median. If you go between by Tanger Outlet all the way to the beach, that beautification project is you've got accommodations of crepe myrtle trees, palmetto trees, which are not considered a tree. It's considered a trunkless species, and tea olives, which are now finally starting to grow up. And that was intentional because that was all we could get approved from DOT. How places like Mount Pleasant and to some extent North Myrtle Beach get theirs approved, I have no idea.
Right.
But we are very limited in what we do. And I worked with Timmy out there one night working on the median, and it is as scary as you can imagine.
Right. So in my whole comment is to attempt to find a species of something that grows pretty fast. It fills it to some great capacity, but at the same time requires the least amount of maintenance. Kudzu. You know what? Kudzu would look better than, okay. Mr. Hubbard.
Now, Alex and I were talking the other night, I think, and we had this conversation, kind of joking about putting turf in our front yards. But I've been out to Portside, the continual care retirement community. They've got it everywhere, and it looks just like grass. Is that something? No, turf.
Oh.
Is that something we could consider putting in there so you guys don't have to get out and risk your lives at night cutting grass?
We might have to look into that.
Oh.
Yeah, but so is their lives.
Keep in mind that area is not in the city either. It's in the county.
Oh, I see. I see.
I think it was a partnership with the county years ago that caused those trees to be in there and us to maintain them.
I see. Well, and see, that's the reason I'm not I'm only talking about that area because I've given up on the idea of our establishing new islands and making them pretty. You know, we've just had enough of that trouble, but since those were established, I really thought they were ours.
Maybe we could partner with the county and put the turf out. Coast,
Yeah.
coast
Yeah.
is right between two of them.
That's right. We make it teal.
Yeah. I like that.
I'm sorry, Timmy, go ahead.
All team.
All right, just to add to that, while I was on the landscaping, we do work with the city arborists in developing the landscape plan with that in conjunction in the right of ways. With the containers downtown, Wanda has been a big inspiration with her scheme of plants, so
Yeah.
just hats off to her. Also, we try to keep the medians mulch on an annual basis, much as possible. We still maintaining the FEMA buyout property in North Conway area, some on Main Street, so we continue on that. Also, the day-to-day operation needs of various departments, like far as, for example, the police department, I'm just going to use them for an example. They have a shooting range that needs to be cut, so we kind of trade off. They help me with litter in the right of way, so I cut the grass for them. So we try to work together as a team and make sure those goals are accomplished. Also, tree care citywide. We work with Wanda. We work with the arborists, and we work with public utility or public works in order to cut those trees out of the right of way, blocking any signage, anything that you come into a intersection that you can't see. So we try to work together as a team and accomplish that goal also. We're going to talk about the committees that this department is obligated to serve on. One is to Keep Conway Beautiful. That committee is going well. We're about to be affiliate. We have a couple more paperwork we got to turn in. So we moving along with that project. We also have Lakeside Cemetery. I'm still on that committee. Each committee that I'm mentioning to y'all, it comes with service requests. That's not the day-to-day operation needs. That's the needs of that committee at that time or what they want to see happen. And sometimes I can't even get to their requests sometime. In the height of the grass season, I cannot accomplish their goal, what they want me. So I'll be honest with them and tell them the truth. I can't get to you. And just bear with me. I'm coming. Then we have Lakeside Cemetery that I mentioned. Of course, you know, we're doing the brick fence in the front. So we're working on that with them. We're still trying to keep the vines and piles of limbs and debris out of the right of way. We continue on with that. Rose Hill Cemetery, that's a different animal there. Rose Hill Cemetery, we've been selling plots for $500 a spot. That's right. What happens in that situation, the city would take that $500, that individual would get that plot. What's been happening is I have to go out myself, mark the grave off. Once you mark the grave off, you have to meet with the grave diggers, the guys who are digging the grave. Then you meet with the funeral home guys. Then if the monument company wants something, we got to go out there and meet with them again. So it kind of bogs me down. But we made it work for the last 4 or 5 years. We try our best to meet with them. But the cemetery business is a tough business. Also, I got another committee, Smith-Jones Joint Venture.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to say much more.
Thank you. I'm gonna pass on.
Sure.
This is so kind, I got two things on the cemetery. The funeral home should be doing that work, marking out and all that. That's not your job. That's the funeral home responsibility. They get paid to do. But this is so timely about Smith Jones. My 9-year-old been over there playing tennis, and Sally just texted me and said, Matt would like for me to pass along the tennis courts for Smith Jones and be going off.
We'll take care of it in the morning.
Wow.
Send him a broom. Gotta have something to do on these 3 days home from school.
All right, so the month of October, what we's doing in the month of October, of course, you see the breast cancer awareness ribbons that's going up around town. We put those up. You see the orange pumpkins that's on the oak trees along Main Street. We got those up.
I was going to mention that later. God, they're gorgeous.
We had a nice planting day down at the riverfront, had a total of 51 employees that showed up. I was telling some city employees that if we had to do that project down there, what we accomplished on Saturday, it probably took me 4 weeks, because you can't take the whole department and take them all down there and do that. We got other needs in other areas that we're responsible for. So I just want to give hats off to John Rogers, Adam Emmerich, and Mary Catherine. They come up, put a plan together, implemented it, and that's what happened. You should go down there. So we are trying to finish.
Where did you
up.
work Saturday, Timmy? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say where you worked Saturday.
Oh, at the Riverfront Park.
Okay.
Inside
Okay.
the Riverfront Park. So I thank them for helping me with that project. And every department was represented. They was there. So hats off to all of them. So thank you. They get to see what we do on a day-to-day basis. And I don't think they would have said, y'all couldn't get this done in a week. So thanks to everybody who helped. Of course, we got November coming up. What's going to happen in November? You'll start seeing these Christmas lights goes up in the right-of-ways, entranceways. You start seeing Christmas banners goes up. So we got to get ahead of the holiday season. And that's going to be my report.
Good report, Timmy.
Anything.
Good report. Please.
Can you just state for the record that the jack-o'-lanterns have holes drilled in the bottom? I have more people say, William, what's going to happen to it, right?
Yes, say for the
Thank you,
record,
Adam,
please.
for getting the holes drilled.
I
in the
drilled
concrete.
200 myself.
Yeah. And you know what? And I didn't see holes, but I just assumed that
Thank you.
the holes were put there.
There's like
Yeah.
4 little tiny holes in each one.
Yeah. There you
There are holes in
go.
them.
Well, now that we're on that subject, let me just say that is the most insanely beautiful. I think I told Adam that it makes us look so hip, so fun, and a little bit crazy, but in a really good way. That we are going all out for Halloween. Those jack-o'-lanterns are just, I'm hearing from people across the country, because my friends who live here are Facebooking everybody everywhere else. And I mean, nothing but smiles are coming from them. It's just genius. Ms. Timms?
I was gonna say the same thing. My phone's rung off the hook about this, and they wanna know who to give credit to. So I told them that Wanda and you and all your helpers, and I other than that, I didn't know Adam was out there drilling holes and stuff too.
Right. And I won't even
But
ask
it
whose
takes a
idea.
village to do anything, and you did this well, but this was a big wow.
Yes.
But they want pumpkins all the way around, wherever there's a
They can't
tree.
find any more pumpkins.
We bought every pumpkin in 4 counties in 2 states.
Are you kidding?
And I was
Well, we
in,
know what to buy next year in the budget.
I was
right?
in Wilmington this weekend and couldn't find any, so I was gonna bring the trunk load back.
And
Shane?
coming over the bridge, especially late in the
Oh,
afternoon,
yeah.
when you can just get where you can see them, it just sparkles.
Maybe next year though, maybe we can start ordering now for, to get another block or 2 in. If we could get from Fifth Avenue to the actual bridge, that'd be enormous.
Before we go crazy and buy more. There's 500 of them roughly.
That are up now?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they're just right. Any fewer wouldn't have the impact on a given tree and in a given area. So you've got them spaced, I think, perfectly. But over time, as we can, I mean, I know that's work, but good Lord, that's the kind of payoff that I don't know that we can't assign, right, a figure of how enriching that is for downtown. I think you hear us.
Thank you.
It's great. And thank you for all you do, Timmy.
Thank you.
What would we do without you?
Thank you. Thank you.
And Adam, thank you for these less formal reports. I really think that's the way to go. If you need that other stuff, you go ahead and require it. But for my time. Okay, very good, very good. And now for council input. The one thing I'm certain of is today we start with Mr. Alex Hyman. Poor Justin.
Mayor, I'll be very brief. Super excited, about what Timmy and those guys did with the Halloween pumpkins, but seeing what we have coming up with the Christmas parade, and then what Conway Downtown Alive's doing with the Christmas festival, and then the Dr. Scream stuff. I think it just creates a lot of excitement, and I think I was talking to my kids about it, and just so excited. I think that given the times that we're in right now, the fact that we're able to do things like that and plan, to have some sense of normalcy is so important. But just very proud of that. One thing I would like for us to take a look at here shortly, and maybe we can put it on something to workshop, is tree ordinance. I think that's been brought up quite a few times. Maybe we need to take a look at it. But other than that, that's all I've got, and I'll give any time that I have left.
Thank you so much. Mr. Golfin.
So thank you, Mayor. If you missed the article, it's a great article in the Independent that came out Thursday. And I just, it's talking about defunding the police, and there's just a lot of misnomers and myth around that. And anyway, I want to thank you for collaborating with Overy County Police Chief and Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach, and just really sort of setting the record straight. It's a great article. Check it out if you haven't. But it just tells folks that, we support our police and we want to support, a safe community. And anyway, I just thought it was a great thing to do. And that's all I've got.
Thank you so much. I think it's a pretty crazy idea generally. That whole defund the police. What in the world? Mr. Howard?
I don't have very much. Just prayers go out to Myrtle Beach Police Department. The officer was shot, and the victim of the shooting a couple weeks ago here in Conway. And it's for the pumpkins. Adam, can we get lights in those?
No.
Yeah. Blow them out at night.
That was the second most questions. Paul's first, I think.
And I think that's about all. Other than I took one down and put it in my juicer, and it wasn't very good. But that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Humphrey. Ms. Jones?
Yeah, I do.
Well, I had two things to talk about tonight. One was the train schedule and the other was the pumpkins. But both of those having been done, but I will comment on the fact that I think times like we're in don't lend themselves to huge, big projects for any municipality right now. So I think the more small things that we can do to draw attention to the lighter side, and I think that's needed. I think people they're tired of 2020, and I think we all are, but we've got a ways to go yet. So Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas can help us through if we'll get into the spirit of the season. And I think our pumpkins downtown went a long way to helping with that.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Mr. White?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Today is the mayor's birthday. We want to say happy birthday to her.
Actually, it was yesterday, but thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We were talking about 4th Avenue, about repaving, but from the signal light at 4th and 378 going south towards Bucksport, that right lane on 4th Avenue has got a lot of I call them holes, where they have the manholes in the road. That right lane is just horrible trying to drive down there. If we can ask DOT or whoever to help with that, that'd be good. And I just want to throw back in that since you brought up Smith Jones about the splash pad, please consider trying to put that out there by whatever means necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. I guess that means that we'll just ask staff to bring us a report on how that might look, how it might happen. Yes, sir. Mr. Jordan.
Thank you. Recently, I think we finished getting the archway and name up on the playground out here. As you know, I was heavily involved with that project, and over the weekend I got some pictures sent to me from a family that it seemed to be the playground was packed Saturday. I think the weather was perfect. So thanks to June and Ashley and whoever else is involved with that. We know Ashley didn't do much. June's doing the work for Ashley, but thanks to your crew and everyone on that. It looks great. And again, back to Mr. Hover said, our thoughts and prayers with all of our law enforcement officers. These guys and girls put on a badge every day and leave home and leave families, and not knowing that they're going to come home. And I couldn't imagine, being in their shoes. So, it's such a tragic event, and we certainly keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you. And for everybody who's mentioned that, that was the top of my list. The loss of a member of a community, of a person who risked his life to uphold laws and keep people safe and free has been lost. And that affects the Myrtle Beach community very broadly. So I would also ask that we pray for the soul of the fallen officer, for his family, and for the entirety of the city of Myrtle Beach. With June's help, we developed I thought, a very well done pledge, if you will, related to our disdain for any discriminatory practices or acts. I'm hoping that there's a way that that message from the council be communicated to employees, particularly those who are in management positions, particularly those who carry a certain level of authority in the community. I think our pledge is sufficient. Federal laws require those things. I don't know. I've been criticized a few times very recently for not doing more than what we've done. I think what we've done is quite sufficient. I just hope that we're spreading it broadly so that people get a sense of what we do believe in and what we stand for. And I just think it's real important that our employees be made privy to what is that position. The jack-o'-lanterns, the jack-o'-lanterns, the jack-o'-lanterns. I mean, so I was going away for a little brief staycation and was encouraged, I mean, pretty well, roughly encouraged to drive downtown, even though it would have put myself about 5 miles out of the way, but I did it, and I'm so happy I did. Thank you, Adam. I just think it's marvelous. I think at some point, we also need to at least have a discussion on our council meeting time. I think by ordinance, our meeting time is 5:30. We're in a state of emergency, so adjustments are allowed. And I don't know how anybody feels about it. I really, really enjoy getting home earlier. So the earlier the meeting, the better. But part of the reason for the 5:30 meeting had to do with meeting the schedule of a person who might want to serve on this council, but would have a chance to have a regular business day prior to meeting, and to offer opportunities for our residents to come and take part as well. It's just something that if we ever get closer to the end of our emergency, and I'm confident we'll live to see that day. I think it's time for us to give some thought as to what direction we'll go in at that time. And that is all I have. We will now go into executive session. Whoever timed this did pretty well. I was long-winded. That probably made up for the extra 10 minutes. But the purpose of the executive session is A, to have a discussion of negotiations incident to the proposed purchase and acceptance of downtown property pursuant to South Carolina Code Section 3470A2. Item B is to entertain a discussion of negotiations incident to the employment of an employee for the Public Works Department pursuant to South Carolina Code Section 3470A1. And finally, C, to entertain discussions of negotiations incident to a proposed employment of city administrator pursuant to South Carolina Code Section 3470A1, after which time we will reconvene from executive session, and we may in fact take action on one or more of those items. Mr. Goldfinch.
Mayor, I move that we move into the executive session.
Mr. Hyman.
I would second Mr. Goldfinch's motion.
We have a properly seconded motion to go into executive session at this time. All in favor with a show of hands.
All right, all of you.
Good night.
We're gonna see God.
Yeah.
You stayed live for
We're
about.
gonna need to get those keys out.
Okay to find the video? I don't think we're gonna vote on anything.
Yeah. Two of the clerks.
motion, well, we already did do a motion to come out. It's, Mr. White moved to come out and who seconded? Mr.
I
Hubbard?
will. I didn't think anybody did.
Mr. Hubbard seconded that motion and it was unanimous. So if we'll start back at item A, the first item that was discussed in executive session was negotiations incident to the proposed purchase acceptance of downtown property. Mr. Hyman.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we allow the administrator to enter negotiations up to $600,000 for the downtown property.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Goldfinch.
I'll second that motion.
We have a properly seconded motion on the floor. All in favor with a show of hands, please. And the motion carries unanimously. Item B has to do with negotiations incident to the employment of an employee. Ms. Timms?
I make a motion that we allow our administrator to enter into negotiations to hire a new employee for the public works department.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jordan?
Second Ms. Tim's motion.
We have a properly seconded motion relative to a Public Works Department employee. All in favor with a show of hands, please. And that motion also carries unanimously. Item C, relative to negotiations incident to proposed employment of a city administrator. Is there a motion? Mr. Hubbard?
I move to implement what we talked about in executive session.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Goldfinch?
I'll second.
We have a properly seconded motion to move forward on item C as well. All in favor with a show of hands, please. And that motion carries unanimously. That concludes all matters set before this council on this evening, and we will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Jordan?
Motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Ms. Timms? We have probably seconded motion to adjourn. All in favor with a show of hands. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you all so very much.
We should have arranged it, like, you make that motion, and I second it. Dale comes in.
I thought we all raised, we should just wave at it.